The moment the photograph appeared on the courtroom screen, nobody spoke. Not the attorneys, not the witnesses, not even the defendant who had spent the entire morning smiling. "Judge, that image proves nothing," Daniel Cross said confidently. He leaned back in his chair, certain the picture would protect him. He was wrong, because the photograph did not prove what he wanted people to see. It proved what he never expected anyone to notice. One small detail, one reflection, one person standing where they claimed they had never been. Before I take you deeper into this case, make sure you are subscribed for more powerful courtroom stories like this. Comment below with where you are watching from, because this case proves that sometimes the smallest detail can reveal the biggest lie. Stay with me, because one photograph changed everything in this courtroom. The case before me involved Daniel Cross and Laura Bennett. Laura was suing Daniel for fraud, property damage, and emotional distress after a family inheritance dispute turned into something far more serious. Daniel claimed Laura had fabricated evidence to stop him from receiving money from his late uncle's estate. He called her desperate. He called her dishonest. He said she created a fake story because she wanted a larger share of the inheritance. But the truth was much different. The photograph on the screen was the reason Laura and Daniel's uncle, Robert Cross, had been close for years. Robert owned a small collection business and had built a valuable antique collection over 4 decades. When Robert passed away, his will divided his assets between several family members. Daniel believed he was entitled to one specific item, a rare antique watch valued at nearly $80,000. Laura disagreed. She claimed Robert had changed his mind before his death and left the watch to a community museum instead. Daniel denied this. He said Robert never made such a decision. Then one photograph appeared. A photograph Daniel claimed was meaningless. The image showed Robert sitting in his study 2 weeks before his death. On the table in front of him were several documents. Daniel said the picture only showed Robert working. Nothing more. But Laura noticed something, a reflection in the glass cabinet behind Robert, a reflection Daniel never saw. That reflection showed a person standing near the desk, a person holding a document, a person Daniel claimed was never there. I asked Daniel when he last visited Robert, 3 days before he passed away. He said, "Why? To check on him." "Did anyone else visit?" "No." "Did you enter his study?" "No." "Did you discuss the watch?" "No." 3 answers, 3 denials, and all 3 would become important. Daniel appeared calm. That was because he believed the case depended on people remembering conversations. He believed memory could be questioned. He believed an old photograph could be dismissed. But evidence does not have emotions. It does not forget. It does not change its story. I asked Laura why she brought the photograph. She explained that after Robert died, Daniel immediately demanded the watch. When she questioned him, he claimed he had never discussed the item with Robert. That statement bothered her because Robert had told her something different. A week before his death, Robert said, "Daniel knows exactly what I decided. He just hopes nobody finds the proof." Laura believed Robert had hidden something, so she reviewed old family photographs. That was when she found the image. At first, it looked ordinary. Robert sitting at his desk, a glass cabinet behind him, documents on the table, nothing unusual until the image was enlarged. The reflection showed Daniel's face, not clearly, but enough. His jacket, his watch, his hand, and the document he was holding. Daniel's attorney argued that reflections could be misleading. He was right. A reflection alone does not prove everything, but it raises a question. And questions require answers. I asked Daniel if he recognized the jacket in the reflection. No. Do you own a similar jacket? Many people do. Do you own this exact one? No. Then I displayed a photograph from Daniel's social media account, taken one day before the visit. Same jacket. Same silver watch, same ring on his right hand. Daniel's expression changed, only slightly, but I saw it. A person can prepare for accusations. It is harder to prepare for recognition. His attorney argued that thousands of people owned similar clothing. Agon, possible. But then I asked about the watch, the silver watch visible in the reflection. Daniel said he never wore a watch like that. I displayed his own online store advertisement. The same watch was listed as a personal item he was selling. Daniel stopped smiling. The photograph was not proving the entire case yet. It was proving something more important. Daniel was not telling the truth about being in that room. I asked him one final question about the image. Cross. If you were never inside Robert's study, why does the reflection show someone wearing your jacket, your watch, and your ring standing beside his desk? Daniel looked at the photograph, then at his attorney, then back at me. For the first time that morning, he had no prepared answer, but I was not finished because the photograph contained another detail. A detail even Laura had not noticed. The document in Daniel's hand was not the will. It was a single page from Robert's private notes. And written at the bottom were 7 words that would explain why Daniel lied about being there. Do not let Daniel take the watch. The words on the screen remained visible. Do not let Daniel take the watch. 7 words. 7 words that changed the entire meaning of the photograph. Until that moment, Daniel Cross had tried to make the case about inheritance, about family disagreements, about Laura wanting something that did not belong to her, but the photograph showed something else. Daniel was not fighting for a watch. He was fighting to hide what Robert had already decided. I asked Daniel if he had seen those words before. No. Have you ever seen Robert's private notes? No. Have you ever discussed the watch with Robert? No. 3 more denials. But the reflection had already placed him inside the room. Now the question was not whether he was there. The question was why he was there. Daniel's attorney argued that even if Daniel visited Robert's study, it did not prove wrongdoing. That was correct. Presence alone is not guilt. But presence combined with deception creates a different picture. I asked Laura what happened after Robert's death. She explained that Daniel was the first family member to contact the estate attorney. Before the funeral, before the family gathering, before anyone else knew the details of Robert's belongings, Daniel requested information about one item, the antique watch, not the paintings, not the vehicles, not the business records, only the watch. That detail mattered. People reveal priorities when they think nobody is watching. I asked Daniel why the watch was important. It was promised to me. By whom? Robert. Where is that promise? He told me verbally. Anyone else present? No. Any written document? No. So Daniel's entire claim depended on one conversation that nobody else heard. That is why he needed the photograph to disappear, because the photograph showed something he could not explain. I displayed another image. This one was taken by Robert's home security system. The camera was located outside the study entrance. Daniel's attorney objected. He argued that the image was unrelated because it only showed the hallway. I disagreed. The hallway told the story before the room did. The timestamp showed Daniel entering Robert's study at 6:42 p.m. He stayed inside for 27 minutes. Daniel had testified he was never there that evening. The courtroom became silent. I turned toward him. Mr. Cross, do you want to revise your testimony? He adjusted his tie. I may have forgotten. Another convenient word. I asked, did you forget entering the room? Yes. Did you forget standing beside Robert's desk? Yes. Did you forget holding documents? I do not know what I was holding. Memory had suddenly returned in pieces. Only the pieces that helped him. I asked Laura about the document shown in the reflection. She explained that after finding the photograph, she contacted Robert's attorney. The attorney confirmed something important. Robert kept personal notes separate from his official estate documents. He wrote down concerns, conversations, decisions he wanted remembered. The page Daniel held was one of those notes. I asked whether the original page still existed. Laura looked at the evidence table. Yes, the clerk presented a sealed folder. Daniel's face changed immediately, not dramatically, but enough. He recognized it. I opened the folder. Inside was the original handwritten page. Robert's handwriting, the same 7 words. Do not let Daniel take the watch. Below that sentence was a date, the same date as Daniel's visit, and underneath it. He came again asking. I said no. The room became completely quiet. Daniel's attorney stood. He argued that Robert's notes were personal thoughts, not legal evidence. That argument had some weight. A private note does not automatically replace a will, but it does show intent, especially when someone later denies the very conversation described in the note. I asked Daniel why Robert would write that sentence. I do not know. Did you ask him for the watch? No. Did you visit him about the watch? No. Then why did he write that you did? Daniel looked down. The answer was obvious, but he refused to give it. I asked the clerk to display Robert's phone records. 3 calls from Daniel, 2 messages, 1 voicemail. The voicemail was recovered from Robert's backup system. Daniel's attorney objected, but the phone records had already established the communication. The voicemail was played. Daniel's voice filled the courtroom. Uncle Robert, you know the watch belongs with me. Don't make this difficult. A pause. Then, you know what happens when family members start fighting. The voicemail ended. Daniel sat still. The man who claimed the watch was simply promised to him had just admitted he was pressuring Robert. But the final sentence was the most important, because it explained why Robert wrote the note. I asked Daniel, what did you mean when you said family members would start fighting? He said nothing. The evidence was no longer about a missing inheritance item. It was about intimidation. Robert was 81 years old. He was dealing with pressure from someone he trusted, and he documented it. But there was still one question. If Daniel knew Robert refused to give him the watch, why did he continue claiming it was his? The answer was hidden in the second photograph. The one Daniel believed would never be examined, because in the corner of that image was something nobody noticed at first, a small envelope, half hidden beneath the documents. And written on the front were 3 words, final decision. The envelope was small, almost invisible. If the photograph had not been enlarged, nobody would have noticed it. But that was the problem with evidence. People often ignore the smallest details because they are looking for something bigger. Daniel Cross was focused on the watch. He was focused on ownership. He was focused on convincing everyone that he had been denied something that belonged to him. He never expected the most important thing in that room was not the watch. It was the envelope beside it. The words on the front were clear. Final decision. I asked Daniel if he recognized the envelope. No. Have you ever seen it before? No. Do you know what documents Robert kept in that envelope? No. His answers were immediate, almost too immediate. I asked Laura whether she had seen the envelope before. No. Then how did you know to look for it? She explained that after seeing the photograph, she contacted Robert's estate attorney. The attorney told her Robert had prepared one final document before his death, a personal statement explaining why he changed his decision about the watch. That statement was never included in the official will because the watch was a personal item, but Robert wanted his reasoning preserved. I asked where that document was now. The estate attorney had searched Robert's files. After seeing the photograph, the envelope was missing. The room became quiet again because the evidence had created a new question. Someone had been inside Robert's study. Someone had seen the envelope. Someone had removed it, and Daniel had already admitted he was standing beside the desk. I asked Daniel whether he removed any documents from Robert's study. No. Any papers? No. Any envelopes? No. 3 more denials, but then I displayed the hallway security image. The camera showed Daniel leaving the study. His right hand was inside his jacket pocket, the same pocket that appeared empty when he entered. His attorney argued that he could have placed anything there. Exactly. That was why the image mattered, not because it proved what was inside the pocket, because Daniel had claimed he took nothing, and the image showed he was leaving with something. I asked Daniel what he carried out. Nothing. Then why is your pocket full? It could be my wallet. I displayed a photograph from earlier that evening, Daniel entering the house. His wallet was in his left pocket, not the right. The courtroom became silent. A small detail, a simple mistake. But lies often fail through small details. I asked Daniel again. What did you remove from Robert's study? I don't remember. The phrase had returned. Mirror disappeared exactly where responsibility began. I asked the clerk to display Robert's final document, not the original. A scanned copy recovered from his attorney's backup system. The first line read, "I am writing this because Daniel believes persistence can change my decision." Daniel looked down. The document continued. He asked for the watch 3 times. I refused each time. The reason was written below, because the watch belonged to my father, and Daniel only wants it because he knows its value. That sentence mattered. Robert did not accuse Daniel of wanting a family memory. He accused him of wanting an asset. I asked Daniel if he disagreed. Yes. Why? Because I loved my uncle. Love is often claimed after someone can no longer respond. But Robert's own words told a different story. I displayed another section. Daniel becomes angry when I say no. He reminds me that I depend on others now. The courtroom became still. That was the moment the case changed. This was not just about a watch. It was about someone using an elderly person's vulnerability. I asked Laura why she believed Daniel wanted the photograph dismissed. She answered, because he knew it showed him taking something. Daniel immediately objected. That is speculation. I agreed. A suspicion is not proof. So I turned to the evidence. The envelope was missing. The photograph showed Daniel near it. The security footage showed him leaving with something. The notes showed he wanted the watch. The voicemail showed pressure. The question was becoming harder to avoid. What exactly did Daniel remove? Then the estate attorney stepped forward. He had been waiting in the gallery. He requested permission to provide additional evidence. He held a small storage device. He explained that Robert's home computer automatically backed up documents every night. 3 days before Robert died, 1 file was deleted, but the backup system preserved the original. The file name was Daniel Conversation. Daniel's expression changed because he knew that file existed. The estate attorney explained that Robert had recorded a conversation after Daniel's 3rd request for the watch, not because Robert wanted revenge, because he wanted proof of what was happening. I asked for the recording to be played. Daniel's attorney objected, but the file had been authenticated. The recording began. Robert's voice was calm. "Daniel, I already answered you." Daniel replied, "You are making a mistake." Robert, "No, I am making a decision." Daniel, "You don't understand what this is worth." Robert, "I understand exactly." A pause. Then Daniel said the sentence that changed everything. "If you don't give it to me, I will make sure everyone knows you were not capable of handling your own affairs." The courtroom went silent because Daniel's greatest weapon was not the watch. It was doubt. He was threatening to make people question Robert's ability to decide. I looked at Daniel. The man who entered claiming he was protecting his uncle had just revealed he was willing to damage his uncle's reputation to get what he wanted, but the recording continued. And the next words from Robert explained why the photograph mattered so much. I have already left proof. Daniel froze because Robert knew someone would eventually look. And he had hidden the final answer inside the one place Daniel never expected. The photograph itself. Robert Cross had said one sentence that changed the entire meaning of the photograph. I have already left proof. Daniel Cross had spent the entire hearing trying to convince everyone that the image was meaningless, a reflection, a shadow, a misunderstanding. But Robert knew something Daniel did not. The photograph was never meant to prove what happened in that moment. It was meant to lead someone to what came next. I asked the estate attorney what Robert meant. He explained that Robert had always been careful. After losing several friends to family disputes over inheritance, Robert started documenting important conversations, not because he expected betrayal, because he believed memories become unreliable when money is involved. I displayed the final pages from Robert's personal notes. The last entry was written the night before his death. It said, Daniel believes the watch is a possession. He does not understand it as a responsibility. That sentence explained Robert's decision. The watch was not valuable because of the gold. It was valuable because of the history. It belonged to Robert's father, who wore it while building the family business. Robert wanted it preserved. Daniel wanted it sold. The disagreement was never about ownership. It was about meaning. I asked Daniel why he wanted the watch so badly. He said, because I was family. That answer sounded reasonable, until I asked another question. If family was the reason, why did you threaten Robert? Daniel's attorney objected. Daniel looked away. The recording had already answered. I asked him whether he believed Robert was capable of making decisions. Yes, that was interesting, because earlier, Daniel's own argument suggested Robert was too confused to decide what happened to his property. He wanted two different versions of Robert, one version when he needed inheritance, another version when he needed an excuse. I asked Daniel, was Robert competent when he refused to give you the watch? Yes. Was he competent when he wrote the note? Yes. Was he competent when he created the final decision document? Yes. Then why should this court ignore his decision? Daniel had no answers. The problem with trying to control the truth is that eventually your own arguments begin fighting each other. I turned toward the photograph again. The image was displayed on the screen, Robert at his desk. Daniel standing beside him, the documents, the envelope, the reflection. I asked the forensic examiner to explain the image. The examiner confirmed that the reflection was consistent with the original photograph. No editing, no manipulation, no digital alteration. Daniel's attorney suggested that even if Daniel held the document, it did not prove he changed anything. Agin, correct. But nobody claimed the photograph alone proved everything. It showed opportunity. The other evidence showed intent. The examiner then pointed toward the corner of the image. A small silver object was visible beside the envelope. At first, everyone assumed it was part of the desk. It was not. It was a key. A small antique key with a unique design. I asked Laura if she recognized it. She looked surprised. Yes. What is it? The key to Robert's private cabinet. The cabinet where Robert stored personal documents, the cabinet Daniel claimed he never opened. I asked Daniel if he had ever used that key. No. Did Robert give you access? No. Did you know where the key was kept? No. Then I displayed the search report from Robert's home after his death. The cabinet was locked, but the key was missing. Daniel's story had created another problem. He knew nothing about the key, yet the photograph showed him standing beside it. I asked the forensic team to examine Daniel's belongings from the day of the visit. They recovered a photograph from his phone, a photograph he had deleted. The image showed the inside of Robert's private cabinet. The timestamp was the same evening. Daniel had photographed the contents. He had not simply visited. He had searched. I asked Daniel why he took a picture inside a locked cabinet. He claimed locked cabinet. He never opened. His answer was quiet. I was curious. Curiosity does not explain hiding the image. Curiosity does not explain deleting it. Curiosity does not explain lying under oath. I asked the clerk to display the deleted photo. Inside the cabinet was another envelope, not final decision. A different envelope, the label read, "Only after my death." Daniel's face changed because that envelope contained the final piece. The one thing he had been trying to find, the one thing he feared would be discovered. I asked the estate attorney whether the envelope was recovered. He nodded. Yes. Where? Behind the cabinet. Why? Because Robert placed it there after realizing Daniel had been searching for it. The courtroom became silent. Robert had predicted the search. He had hidden the proof where only someone looking for it would reveal themselves. I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter, not about the watch, about Daniel. The first line read, "If Daniel is reading this, he has already ignored my wishes." Daniel looked down. The letter was Robert's final message. And the first sentence explained why the photograph had been enough to begin the truth, because Robert had not hidden evidence from Daniel. He had hidden evidence for whoever Daniel underestimated. The letter inside Robert Cross's hidden envelope was not long. It did not need to be. Sometimes the strongest evidence is not 100 pages of explanation. Sometimes it is a few sentences written by someone who knows exactly what they need to protect. I read the first line again. "If Daniel is reading this, he has already ignored my wishes." Daniel looked down. For the first time since entering the courtroom, he did not look confident because Robert had not written that sentence out of anger. He had written it out of understanding. He knew Daniel. He knew how badly Daniel wanted the watch, and he knew Daniel believed wanting something strongly enough gave him the right to take it. The letter continued. Daniel has always believed that being family means receiving what he wants. But family is not measured by what you inherit. It is measured by what you respect. The courtroom remained silent. Daniel's attorney tried to argue that Robert's personal opinions were not legally binding. Again, he was correct. A letter does not replace a will. But this case was never only about the legal ownership of a watch. It was about Daniel's actions, his lies, his pressure, his attempt to hide evidence. I asked the estate attorney what else was inside the envelope. He handed me another document, a transfer record, not for the watch, for a museum donation. Robert had already arranged for the antique watch to be displayed permanently at the Cross Family Historical Museum. Daniel had not lost the watch after Robert died. He had lost it before. Robert had made his decision while alive. Daniel knew that that was why he was desperate to find the final documents. I asked Daniel when he learned about the museum transfer. I did not. Then why did you photograph the cabinet? I was looking for information. What information? I asked. The will. Interesting. Earlier, he claimed he only wanted the watch. Now, he admitted he was searching private documents. The truth was changing because the evidence was forcing it to. I asked Daniel if he had permission to search Robert's cabinet. No. Did Robert give you the key? No. Did you take the key? No. Then I displayed the fingerprint report from the cabinet handle. Daniel's fingerprints were found on the inside latch, not the outside. Inside, the cabinet had been opened, searched, and closed again. Daniel's attorney became quiet. There are moments in a courtroom when arguments disappear because evidence has already answered the question. This was one of those moments. I asked Daniel, "Why did you delete the photograph of the cabinet?" "I was cleaning my phone." "Only that photograph?" "Yes." "Why?" "I do not remember." Again, memory disappeared. I asked the forensic examiner whether the deletion was accidental. "No." "Why?" "Because the image was moved to a hidden folder before deletion." That detail mattered. Accidents do not usually hide themselves. I turned toward Daniel. "You did not forget the photograph existed." No answer. "You tried to make sure nobody found it." Silence. Then Daniel finally said, "I was protecting my family." That sentence would have sounded noble if the evidence did not tell another story. Protecting family does not require lying about visits. It does not require hiding documents. It does not require threatening an elderly man. I asked him, "Who were you protecting?" Daniel did not answer because the answer was obvious. He was protecting himself. I asked Laura how she discovered the photographs. She explained that Robert had always taken pictures of his collections. After his death, she reviewed them because she wanted to understand what items mattered to him. She was not searching for Daniel. She was searching for Robert. That difference mattered. One person looked at the photographs to preserve memories. Another looked at them to find something he could take. The evidence showed the difference. I turned back to the photograph. The image that started everything, the photograph Daniel called meaningless, the photograph he wanted everyone to ignore. It showed him in the room. It showed the envelope. It showed the key. But most importantly, it showed something about his character. He believed nobody would examine closely. That was his mistake, because justice often depends on someone willing to zoom in one detail. One reflection, one unanswered question. The final evidence was the audio from Robert's private recorder, the same recorder Daniel did not know existed. It captured the conversation immediately after Daniel found out about the museum donation. Robert's voice was calm. Daniel's was not. Daniel said, "You are choosing strangers over your own family." Robert replied, "I am choosing what I believe is right." Daniel, "You will regret making me look like I have nothing." Robert, "No. You will regret proving why I made this decision." The recording ended. And with those words, the entire case became clear. Robert was not surprised by Daniel's actions. He prepared for them, the photograph, the notes, the hidden envelope, the recording. Every piece existed because Robert understood one painful truth. Sometimes the person closest to you is the person who needs to be proven wrong. I looked at Daniel. He had spent the entire hearing saying Laura was dishonest. But the person who left behind the strongest evidence was the very man he claimed to love. Before I delivered the ruling, I asked Daniel one final question. If Robert were sitting here today, do you believe he would say you respected his decision? Daniel looked at the floor. No answer came. And that silence said more than any confession. The verdict was ready. But first, the courtroom needed to hear what happened to the watch, the inheritance. And the person Daniel tried to make look like the villain, because the wrong person had been accused from the beginning, the verdict was not about a watch. That was the first thing I wanted everyone in the courtroom to understand. The watch was only the object that revealed the truth. The real issue was what Daniel Cross was willing to do to get something he believed he deserved. He entered the courtroom claiming he had been denied a family possession. He left after proving why Robert had denied him. I found in favor of Laura Bennett on every claim before me. The evidence showed that Daniel had entered Robert's private study, searched personal documents, removed materials, and misrepresented his actions throughout the proceedings. The court record established that his statements about never entering the study, never seeing the documents, and never searching the cabinet were not supported by the evidence. They were contradicted by it. Daniel's attorney argued that his client was emotional because he was grieving. Grief can explain pain. It does not excuse deception. Missing someone does not give a person permission to ignore their final wishes. I ordered the disputed documents preserved and referred the evidence for further review regarding the removal of private records and interference with estate matters. The photograph, the deleted images, the security footage, the recordings, the handwritten notes, every piece told the same story. Daniel did not discover a mistake. He created one. I turned toward Laura. For weeks, she had been accused of manipulating Robert's wishes. She had been called greedy. She had been told she was trying to steal from family. But the evidence showed something completely different. Laura was not fighting for the watch. She was fighting for Robert's decision to be respected. I asked her why she continued when Daniel attacked her publicly. She answered, "Because Robert trusted me to tell the truth when he could not defend himself." That was the heart of the case. Trust, not inheritance, not money, not an antique watch. Trust. After the hearing, the antique watch was transferred according to Robert's final instructions. It was placed in the Cross Family Historical Museum. A small display was created beside it, not about its financial value, about its history. The description beside the watch read, "Owned by Thomas Cross, preserved by Robert Cross, donated for future generations." No mention of Daniel, no family argument, no controversy. Just the truth. Months later, Laura visited the museum. She stood in front of the display for several minutes. She told me she expected to feel sadness. Instead, she felt relief. Because Robert's final decision survived, the person who wanted to control his legacy failed. The person who wanted to protect it succeeded. Daniel's reputation changed quickly. People who once defended him began asking questions. How many times had he pressured Robert? How many other decisions had he tried to influence? How many things had he considered his simply because he wanted them? Those questions were never answered by anger. They were answered by records. That was the lesson Daniel never understood. A person can argue with another person's memory. They can question motives. They can attack character. But evidence is different. Evidence does not need confidence. It does not need a powerful last name. It does not need anyone's permission. It simply remains. I still remember the first moment Daniel thought he had won. The photograph appeared. He smiled. He said it proved nothing. He believed everyone would see only what he wanted them to see. A man sitting at a desk, an ordinary image, nothing important. But the courtroom learned something that day. The truth is often hidden in places people ignore. A reflection, a timestamp, a deleted file, a small envelope, a sentence written by someone who knew he might not be there to explain it. Daniel laughed at the photograph because he thought the image was incomplete. He never realized that incomplete evidence can still open the door to complete truth. Robert did not leave behind a single piece of proof. He left a trail. And Daniel followed it directly to his own undoing. The most powerful moment in the case was not when the verdict was read. It was when Daniel finally understood something. The photograph was never his enemy. The photograph was Robert's final protection. It protected the decision of a man who knew his voice might be questioned. It protected the person who promised to tell the truth. And it protected a legacy that someone else wanted to control. Daniel entered believing he was the person who had been wronged. But the evidence showed something else. He was the person who ignored the warning signs, the person who underestimated the importance of one photograph, the person who forgot that even the smallest detail can expose the biggest lie. If this case reminded you that truth does not need to be loud to be powerful, like this video, subscribe for more courtroom stories where evidence speaks louder than excuses. Share this story with someone who believes every detail matters. Then comment below. When did you realize Daniel was not telling the truth? Because Daniel thought one photograph could be dismissed, but Judge Judy only needed to zoom in once, and the entire story changed.